Hey everybody, it's me Jack and I'm back with another video. Now I know what you're thinking, where's your Spider-Verse review? Well, don't worry, that will come soon. But seeing how that it is October, I figured why not talk about some scary movies. Recently I attended the Calgary Halloween and Entertainment Expo, and I got to see several of the cast members from the Nightmare on Elm Street series. I even met Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund. So I figured, why not give my thoughts on the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, by ranking them from worst to first. And in case you're wondering, no, I will not be including the remake. I will only be talking about the movies that feature Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. And yes, Freddy vs. Jason does count. So without further ado, here is my ranking of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Coming in last place, we have Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Right from when this movie began, I could tell that it wasn't going to be anything special. And yeah, it's pretty bad. It lacks any of the real horror or tension of the previous movies. This is especially disappointing because this movie followed up Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, which is one of the best films in the series in my opinion. That movie gave us some really good, likable new characters, and this movie kills all of them off right at the beginning, rendering their survival in the last movie rather pointless. I hate it when horror sequels do this. Besides that, though, this movie is not scary. This movie showed more and more that Freddy Krueger was becoming less of a real threat and more of just a joke. This movie assumes that it can have Freddy Krueger do anything and it'll be scary simply because it's Freddy Krueger. It doesn't work that way. Like, there's a scene of him peeling an apple with his claws. Scary? The new characters that it introduces are nothing special. The actress that plays the main girl, Alice, unfortunately is kinda bad. The acting in these movies has never been the strongest part, but nonetheless her performance is not very strong. It also doesn't help that they couldn't even get Patricia Arquette back from the last movie. Probably because she read the script and was like, yeah, no. And the actress that replaces her is pretty bad as well. The film also has easily the dumbest moment in any Nightmare movie ever. When Freddy is brought back by having a dog named Jason, of all names, piss fire on top of his grave. That is easily the stupidest villain resurrection I have ever seen. The only real thing that stands out about this movie is Freddy's death. Alice holds up a broken piece of glass showing Freddy his own reflection, which causes all the souls of the children he's killed to rip out of him, tearing him apart, in a really cool practical effect. It's easily my favorite Freddy death in the entire series. Aside from that, this movie is a boring, forgettable mess. Coming in at number 7, we have Freddys Dead, The Final Nightmare. I was honestly debating between this and number 4 as to which film would be at the bottom of the list. After rewatching both of them though, I would give this one a slight edge, because there are a couple things in this movie that are very exceptional. Yaphet Kotto is in this movie, and he's great, and even though this movie is kinda bad, he goes through it completely unscathed. I also like the sequence where Freddy torments the character of Carlos, a boy who has trouble hearing, by torturing him with loud noises in his dream. Unfortunately, this leads into the biggest problem with this movie, Freddy himself. This scene, while good, portrays Freddy as less of a violent monster, and more of just a troll. It's true that as the movies went on, Freddy's character became more and more goofy, but this film is where he is at his absolute goofiest. There is barely a moment in this film where he is legitimately threatening. Whether he's parodying The Wizard of Oz, or trapping a kid inside of a video game and then playing that video game. He's practically a stand-up comedian. This is especially sad because, well, this is his last real appearance in the official series. And it's sad to see him go out like this. There are also some really good scenes that show flashbacks to his past. And it's funny because he is far more threatening in this movie as just a normal guy than he is as the burned, dream-haunting monster that we all know him as. We get some flashbacks to his past and his childhood, and it's all very well done, but it just doesn't connect, because this feels like the backstory of a legitimately threatening villain, which Freddy in this movie is most certainly not. The The film introduces an interesting idea of him having a daughter, and him trying to make her like him. And I do like the fact that she is the one that ultimately kills him once and for all. But again, it's mostly played for laughs. She blows him up in a really cheesy 3D effect, and then just says, "Freddy's dead," and the credits roll. And yeah, that's it. That's it for Freddy in the official series. Now, I do applaud this movie for at least living up to its title. This is the final nightmare. Freddy is dead after this movie. But it's just a shame that the Freddy Krueger of the official series went out on such a humiliating note. Coming in at number 6, we have Freddy vs. Jason. In the early 2000s, New Line Cinema decided to put together two of the most popular horror villains of all time, Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. The result was an alright, but not very special movie. Many people complain about this movie having a very slow pace, and yeah, I do agree. It takes so long for Freddy and Jason to actually fight each other. That being said, when we do get to it, it is very entertaining. The film also does do a very good job of making you sympathize with Jason, and makes you want to see him kick Freddy's ass. Freddy is also very good in this movie as well. I mean, true, he does still have his one-liners, but he is more threatening here than he was in something like Freddys Dead. The film ends on a cliffhanger that has never really been resolved. I don't really know how to feel about this. On the one hand, yeah, it would be fun to see more of these guys fighting each other. But on the other hand, it could get very boring after a while. So it's probably best that they stopped here. Overall, Freddy vs. Jason is an alright flick that gives you the bare bones of what you want going into a movie like this. Coming in at number 5, we have Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddys Revenge. The first sequel in the franchise is not one of the best, which is a shame because I think it really could have been. The concept of Freddy possessing a human and having them kill for him in the real world is very interesting. In a lot of ways, it's even scarier than in the first movie. Instead of having this guy want to kill you, he instead wants to use you as a puppet to kill for him. Freddy Krueger is also very menacing in this movie. That's what I love about the first two Nightmare movies in particular. They portray Freddy as a legitimate threat. I also like that they keep Freddy's face in the dark throughout a lot of the movie, giving him a very mysterious and creepy feel. There's this one scene where he attacks this girl and bites her leg like a savage animal. It's really scary. But unfortunately, there is also a lot of really dumb stuff in this movie. And all of it doesn't really have to do with Freddy. There are a bunch of scenes that are trying to be scary but are just so goofy and completely fall flat on their face. Like a scene where our main character Jesse is attacked by a snake. Or the scene where his gym teacher is attacked by basketballs that just hits him in the face constantly. Again, it's trying to be scary and it's just not. But the stupidest scene in the movie is definitely when his pet bird goes crazy and attacks his family. Like, it's a little bird. You want us to be scared of it? I'm sorry, I'm not. And then it just blows up. It explodes into fire. I also feel like the character of Jesse could have been a lot more interesting. Like, there's no real reason why Freddy chose him in particular other than just convenience. Like, maybe his character is sort of a reflection of Freddy. Maybe he's a little crazy himself. He has anger problems and he attacks people. Like, even if Freddy hadn't possessed him, he could have possibly become just like him. Maybe Freddy sees a lot of him in Jesse. That would have made this a lot more interesting. Overall, Freddy's Revenge has a lot of good stuff in it, but it's balanced out by a lot of really bad stuff as well. Coming in at number 4, we have Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. After watching the fourth movie, I had very little hopes for this one. I assumed it would probably be just as bad, if not worse. But much to my surprise, it was quite the improvement. The character of Alice returns from the last movie, and I have to say, the actress that plays her does get a lot better. The character is also a lot more interesting as well, as it turns out she's pregnant, and Freddy Krueger plans to poison her child's mind and make it just like him. The film does touch on the idea of teen pregnancy, which is a very controversial subject. It also does have some legitimately creepy moments and set pieces, as well as some beautiful matte paintings. The comic book sequence is one of my favorite scenes in the entire Nightmare franchise. it is very visually interesting. And while it is goofy, it's just the right amount of goofy for me. And the way that Freddy kills the character of Mark by turning him into a comic book illustration and then tearing that illustration apart is both disturbing and funny. We even get an appearance from that kid from the beginning of Jurassic Park, playing Alice's son, Jacob, who does do a very good job for a child actor. And Freddy's brought back to life in a way that is rather creative, being reborn by his mother once again in the dream world. A much better resurrection than that. There's still stupid shit like Freddy dressed up as a waiter saying, "Bon appetit, bitch!" But overall, the film is rather enjoyable. Coming in at number 3 is movie number 3. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. This one is a fan favorite, and for good reason. It presents a very good cast of likable and enjoyable characters, including the return of Nancy from the first movie. Unlike some of the other movies in the series where the characters are rather bland and you're just sort of waiting for them to be killed, here you legitimately want them to survive. They're all kids with their own insecurities and flaws. You have a drug addict, a kid in a wheelchair, a kid who's a mute. The film also plays around with the idea that sometimes dreams can be a good thing, because in them you can do the things that you've always wanted to do, and be the people that you want to be. When some of these characters get killed, I actually feel rather choked up about it. Like at the beginning of the movie when Freddy turns one of the kids into a literal puppet that he controls and makes them kill themselves. It's a really nail-biting and suspenseful scene. On the more negative side, this film did mark the point in the series where Freddy started to become less threatening and more comical, having his first real one-liner when he kills a girl who wants to be a star on television by smashing her right into the TV and saying, "Welcome to prime time, bitch!" But aside from that, this is a very solid movie, and definitely deserving of the praise that it gets from the fan base. Coming in at number 2, we have Wes Craven's New Nightmare. After the disappointment of Freddys Dead, Wes Craven, the director of the original Nightmare on Elm Street, came along and said, "Okay, that's it. I'm going to end the franchise the way I want to end it." And man, did he deliver. It isn't technically part of the official series because it takes place in the real world, with the actors from the original Nightmare on Elm Street playing themselves. The film centers around Heather Langenkamp. I hope I pronounced that name right. The actress who played Nancy, who suddenly realizes that she's being stalked by Freddy Krueger, the character, who has somehow managed to make his way out of the movies and into our world. This concept is kinda silly, but the way that it's executed makes it a lot scarier. Wes Craven's main intention with this film was to bring Freddy Krueger back to his roots, back to the truly horrifying monster that he was in the original film. And man, this Freddy is terrifying. Heather Langenkamp also does a very good job of playing, well, herself. And her relationship with her son is very believable. Again, you really care about these two and want them to survive. The kills are brutal and disturbing, and Freddy Krueger's death is truly satisfying. Much more so than his death in Freddys Dead. While this is technically a different Freddy Krueger, it is nonetheless the last time that we see him die in one of these movies. And it's great. Seeing him get burned alive and then turn into a demon right before exploding is just amazing. Overall, Wes Craven's New Nightmare was the ending to the franchise that we deserved. And the number 1 best Nightmare movie is, of course, the original, Nightmare on Elm Street. And yeah, it really couldn't have been anything else, could it? This movie is a true horror classic, giving us a truly terrifying idea. Wes Craven took the concept of nightmares and brought it to a whole new level, introducing the character of Freddy Krueger, who has since become a horror icon. The mere concept of a man killing you in your nightmares is truly scary in and of itself. The kills in this film are some of the best, particularly the death of Tina. And hey, it's Johnny Depp. That's right, Johnny Depp made his film debut in this movie. While his character may not be the most memorable, his death, holy shit. You can live 100 years and you will never forget this guy's death. Like all the movies, there are a couple of goofy moments, but nothing, absolutely nothing, can undermine the sheer amount of terror that this movie incites. There's not much else to say other than it's a perennial classic, and definitely deserving of the top spot on this list. Thanks for watching. Let me know your rankings in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in your nightmares.